How's it going? This is part 2 of the beginner's guide to freaking cool holiday LEDs. In the last video, we covered some of the basics about different kinds of LEDs, a few mounting options, voltage and power supply considerations, and how to get the wLED software on those cheap little Wi-Fi control boards. In this video, we're going to pick up where we left off. That means digging deeper into wLED, and I'll show you why I think it's the best. Ready? Let's go. This video is all about wLED. I love the mobile app, so let's dig into that first. And we'll spend a lot of time in the settings before this video is done. Next is a little moon. That's the sleep button. When you press this button, it'll start a timer. The LEDs will slowly dim and then turn off when the timer's finished. The default timer is set for 1 hour. I'll show you later how to change that. This button in the upper right lets us set 2 custom colors for our LED effects. When the button is off or to the left, like it is now, that means the color wheel, this upper brightness slider, and these preset color buttons are going to change the primary color. So left equals primary color. When you move the switch to the right, then the color wheel, the upper brightness slider, and the color buttons will set the secondary color. So right is secondary. Different effects use the primary and secondary colors in different ways. Some effects don't use either. If you set a secondary color, but then decide you don't want it to show up in your effect, you can turn off the secondary color by moving the button to the right and then slide the upper brightness slider all the way down to the left. That basically sets your secondary color to black. Next, we have this sync button. If you have more than one wLED controller, which you probably will, I have 10 and counting. If you set this switch to on to the right, then whatever display changes you make on this controller will be sent to all your other wLED controllers too. So if you want them all to display the same effect, you turn on the sync button and then pick the colors and or effect that you want blasted out to all your LEDs. There is a way to set up subgroups for syncing, and I'll show you that when we dig into the settings. Next are the preset buttons. With these, you can easily save your favorite effects. If you're like me, you'll spend a lot of time playing with the different effects and colors. When you finally get your LEDs showing exactly what you want, you can save all the current settings, that is, colors, effects, speeds, etc., by turning on the Edit Preset button to the right, then click one of these pre-numbered buttons. It's probably a good idea to write down your presets at first so you'll know which one is which. And make sure you turn the Edit Presets button back off when you're done. Below the preset buttons, we have the preset cycle. So you've got these 16 different presets now, and let's say 4 of them are Christmas themed. Maybe those presets are numbers 11 through 14. If you want your LEDs to cycle through those 4 presets, you can set this range to include those numbers, 11 through 14. You can decide if you want it to cycle through colors, effects, or both. I'm going to say both. You can adjust how much time it's on each preset and how long the transition between colors takes. And once you have your cycle settings arranged the way you want them, make sure you turn the cycle mode on and off when you're done using it. Now we get into the really fun stuff, the effects. Right here is the list of all 80 effects that are built into wLED. Prepare to spend a lot of time playing with this. Some of my favorites are Color Winkle, Stream 2, Colorful, and Dynamic. I also like all the different noise effects. Something about the chaos of the noise effects calls to me. When you set your primary and secondary color to your favorite sports team colors, some of the good effects to emphasize those colors are running, wipe with the speed turned up, maybe way up, sweep, and fade. But there are a lot of different effects that use the primary and secondary colors in fun ways. On the wLED GitHub wiki, there's a list of all the effects, and you can read a little bit about what each one of them does. And this will let you know if they use the primary and secondary colors, or if they use random colors, or in some cases they have fixed colors like rainbow, red and blue, Merry Christmas, and Halloween. Below the list of all the effects, there's a speed slider and an intensity slider. The speed slider does what you think it would do. Makes them go slow, makes them go fast. But the intensity slider does different things depending on which effect you're showing. Again, back to this list, you can get information about what the intensity slider does for the different effects. Some, it doesn't change at all. But if it does do something to that effect, it will tell you here what it does. I counted them, and of the 80 effects on the list, 30 of them are changed in some way by the intensity slider. The last section on the mobile interface is the fast LED palette section. As you might guess, palettes set the colors. With the palette set to default, you can adjust the primary and secondary colors like we did a minute ago. Most effects are palette dependent, meaning if you change the palette, it'll change the colors of the effects. But some are palette independent. Those are the ones like rainbow, Christmas, Halloween, and red and blue. As you can see here with the Christmas effect on, if I select a different palette, it doesn't change the colors at all. But if I select a different effect like chase, and then select a different palette, it will change the colors that get displayed. Some effects don't use the primary color at all, like lake. So with those effects, what you select for the palette makes an even bigger difference. Palettes are a really cool way to get some pretty unique looking effects. And I don't know another LED controller that lets you select this many palettes. And right under the list of effects and what they do is a list of the palettes and a little description about what colors they use. Good luck finding your favorite. That pretty much covers what's on the main page of the mobile interface. Now let's dig into the settings. And if I leave anything out, which I'm sure I will, you can find pretty much all this information on the GitHub wiki. Starting at the top, let's look at the Wi-Fi setup. A couple quick things to review about the Wi-Fi setup. This is the page you get when you first turn on one of these boards and connect to its access point. You put your Wi-Fi name and password here. You put a name in here for the .local. I suggest you use 0.8.6 or newer because there were some important changes to how the Wi-Fi connections are managed. And it's quite a bit better than it was. As long as you have a name in here and you've selected something down here other than never, which is not recommended, then if your wLED board ever drops off your network, it will create an access point again so that you can reconnect to it and fix whatever network problem may have gone wrong. In my setup, I'm going to change the name so that each access point is unique. And the password here is wLED, all lowercase, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for most of us, that's all you need to do. But if you're somebody who likes to have more control over your network connections, you do have the option here to put in a static IP address. If you choose to do that, make sure that the IP address that you use is outside of the DHCP range that your router uses to assign IP addresses to other devices. And make sure that the static gateway is the IP address of your router. Don't leave this as zeros. Again, the static IP thing is not something that everybody has to do. If you just let your router handle it, that's fine. But make sure you configure the access point in case it ever falls off your network and you need to rescue it. That's it. Save and connect. And you notice that my lights went back to the default color and stopped displaying their effect when the board rebooted. We're going to change that too. So that was all for Wi-Fi setup. Let's look at the LED preferences. This first box is where you put how many LEDs you have. On this little strip, I've got 7. Next, it gives you a recommendation for the size of the power supply. Now let's imagine that I had 150 LEDs here. It would tell you you need a 9 amp power supply. You'll never go wrong if you use this number. This is a nice feature. As it says here, it will automatically limit the brightness to stay below whatever limit you set here. So if you have a 2 amp power supply, then put 2000 milliamps in this box. Next, let's talk about RGB Color Order. When you first boot up a wLED board, the LEDs will be kind of an orangish yellow color. If instead you see green or pinkish purple or blue, then you need to go to this drop-down box and change the RGB color order. So if you're looking at your LEDs and they're not displaying the colors that you think they should be, this is the setting to change, to fix it. These next boxes are how you change what happens when the board first starts up. If you hit Set Current Color, Brightness, and Effect as Boot Default, then whatever effect is shown on the lights right now is what will be there after it reboots. If you have your preset cycles set, you can also choose to set that as the default when it turns on. Or you can apply one of your presets. You can also select a specific primary color and a specific secondary color, and an effect, and a palette, and speed and intensity. This is a nice option, but honestly, if you've got a color, an effect, and speed and intensity that you like, make it a preset and just set it as the preset here, if that's what you want it to do when it boots up. But this is a nice option to have. Next is the timed light section. This is where you can change how long the timer is when you click the little moon. As I said, it starts out as 60. For most of mine, I've changed it to 30. And if you don't want them to turn all the way off, you can set the target brightness to something other than 0. If you leave it at 0, then after that 30 minutes, they'll be all the way off. The next section is user interface. As we've seen, there are two different user interface modes, classic and mobile. By default, it's set to auto. If you're on a phone, it'll select mobile, and if you're on a computer, it'll select classic. I like to use mobile even on a computer. So on the classic interface, we've got power, then we've got color selection, and you get two options for how you want to select the colors. This gives you a bar with a spectrum of colors, and then below that you can adjust the saturation. To the left, there's more white. To the right, there's less white. The colors are more saturated. And then the top slider controls the brightness. If you click this button again, you can get brightness, but then red, green, and blue, and you can adjust those based on how much of each color you want to show. So two different ways to adjust the color in the classic interface. Server description, this name will show up on the user interface and in the list of controllers in the app. These next couple settings are just for the classic UI. This checkbox changes which of the two color selection slider types you're going to use by default. And then there are a bunch of color themes you can choose from. Again, this only applies to the classic UI, not to the mobile app. Next, we have sync interfaces. This is some important stuff. The first section gives you the option of using a button. If your LED controller is somewhere that you can reach, like what I have for my girls with their nightlight in their room, then enabling this button is a good idea. If your LED controller is stuck in a box out on the rim of your roof, then you could probably disable this. It doesn't really make much difference. This wLED broadcast section is what makes the sync function work. Because I think this sync thing is pretty important, I'm going to walk you through an example. So I've got here 5 different wLED boards open. These first two, Windows and Deck Bar, I want those to sync together. So I'm going to go down here and change the UDP port number, and I'm going to make it 22. Save it and reboot it. Now I want to do the same for the Windows because I want the Windows and the Deck Bar to sync together. So I change this to 22. So it's the same UDP port number that I used for the Deck Bar. Save it. Make sure it reboots. So now these two will sync together. This next one is on the roof line on the front of the house. I'm going to leave the UDP port at the default because I want the front, the side, and the back roof line to all sync together. So those all stay with the default port number. And then these last two are night lights that I've set up for my little girls. I want those to be on a different sync group as well. So I'm going to change this to 21. So now I have 3 different sync groups. The Windows and the Deck Bar are in one sync group with the same UDP port. I've got all the LED boards that are still listening on the default UDP port. And I've got my girls' night lights that are synced together and on their own UDP port. And if I make a color change to Holly's lights, and then I go to Grace's lights, you can see the change in the background. So that's the importance of the UDP port. This is how you can set up different subgroups for syncing. All these other notification checkboxes are more options about syncing. The list on GitHub tells you what some of them do. For me, so far, I haven't needed to use them, so I can't really explain very much about them. I'm just going to suggest you leave it set to the default and move on. E131 has to do with using even more fancy software like Xlights or Vixen. This is pretty important because it makes wLED expandable. If later down the road you really catch the holiday lights bug and you want to expand your shows, you won't need to change your controllers that are already running wLED. They will already have what they need to be useful with Xlights. That's pretty cool. But that's a subject for another time. If you have She Who Shall Not Be Named, whatever you put in this box here is what you'll have to say to get her to turn your wLED strip on or off. By default, she can turn it on or off, change the color, and set the brightness. Once you've saved that, tell her to discover new devices. She may say she discovered something, she may say she didn't, but eventually you'll be able to turn this on or off by saying, Bertha, turn on bench LEDs. Continuing down this page, Blink is an app, and somehow you can use it to control your lights when you're outside your home network. I tried it once, but it didn't work for me, so I can't say much else about how to use it. But there are some pretty good instructions on the wLED GitHub if you want to try it out. It wasn't actually very hard to set up, it just didn't work. Next is MQTT. That's something I use a lot. If you're a DIY smart homer like me, you've probably used MQTT before, and this will all be familiar. wLED does have an AutoDiscover feature, and Home Assistant should be able to find your wLED controller and make a light entity with a color wheel and effects list. For that to work, you need to have your MQTT broker information set in each wLED controller, and you need to have MQTT Discovery enabled in Home Assistant. I've had a lot of folks tell me that AutoDiscovery didn't work for them, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to determine exactly why that happens in some cases. But that's okay. If AutoDiscovery doesn't work for you, there's always the manual method for adding wLED devices to Home Assistant. Also, as of right now, AutoDiscovery doesn't include every function available in wLED, like speed and intensity sliders and the preset buttons. But manually, we can add all those and pretty much any other function we want. We can go through more of the details of adding wLED to Home Assistant manually using MQTT in another video. So if you don't know what MQTT is and you've never heard of Home Assistant, don't worry. You don't need it to use wLED. And all this stuff about Philips Hue is another thing that I don't use, so I can't tell you too much about it. But I guess if you have a Philips Hue Bridge, you can control all your LEDs through it. And that's it for the sync setup. Next is time and macros. I recommend checking this Get Time from NTP server box so you can have a very accurate time on your wLED controllers. That'll be important if you use the macro schedules that we're going to talk about in a minute. There's some pretty slick Arduino tricks for making a clock out of LEDs, and AirCookie was smart enough to include them in wLED as well. Next, you have the option to use a countdown timer. Now, so far, wLED doesn't have a calendar option. For example, you can't say between November 24th and December 26th, run these certain effects. But you can set a countdown goal, and when your countdown date and time arrives, you can trigger a macro. I just heard all you beginners yell, "What the heck is a macro?" Macros are a more advanced topic, and I'll have to cover those in another video. But earlier in this video, I said we could do something cool with a button and macros. So let's do that. The Node MCU has a couple buttons on it. One of them is labeled Flash. By default, if you press that button, wLED will toggle your LEDs on or off. But with a couple simple macros, you can expand the function of that button. Here are 3 simple macros that I'm using. The first one will cycle to your next preset. Macro number 2 will toggle the LEDs on or off. And macro number 3 will turn on the nightlight timer. Now scroll down, and where it says Button Short Press Macro, select the number 1. And for long press, number 2, and for double press, number 3. Then save it. Now when you long press the flash button, the LEDs will come on. When you short press, they will cycle through your presets. And if you double press, it'll turn on the sleep timer at whatever you set as the default time. If you don't want to use the button on the Node MCU, which you probably won't, you can connect a wire to D3, which is right next to D4. That's where you connected the signal wire that goes to the LEDs, and another wire to one of the available ground pins on the Node MCU. Connect those to a momentary button, and then you'll get the same functionality from this button as you do from the button on the Node MCU. You can put this external push button pretty far from the Node MCU. This makes it pretty convenient for anyone to control your LEDs without a phone or a computer. I love this feature. Thank you, Air Cookie. That's one of my favorite parts. You can also set macros that will be triggered when you tell She Who Shall Not Be Named to turn it on or off. Using my macros here, if I change this to 3, then when I say, Bertha, turn off wLED bench, it will activate the nightlight timer. And when I tell her to turn it on, it will activate macro number 1, which will cycle to the next of my presets. Countdown over macro will activate a macro when this countdown goal, date, and time arrives. You can use timed light over macro if you want to do something other than just turn off your lights when your sleep timer is up. And these timed controlled macros let you set a day of the week and a time of day to activate a specific macro. So in this example, on Saturday at 6:30 p.m., it will activate macro number 2. Now that's every Saturday, and it'll keep doing that if I don't make any changes to this. If I want to deactivate it, I've got a checkbox here to do that. Well, that's it. Part 2 of my beginner's guide to freaking awesome LEDs. Hopefully that was helpful to you. After this, you should feel a lot more comfortable digging into wLED, and you should be able to do a lot of really cool stuff with your fancy new LEDs. But this still isn't all. I still want to go through the details of connecting wLED to Home Assistant using MQTT, and I also want to tackle frequently asked questions. So this still is not the last wLED video that I'm going to do. I hope that's okay. As always, thanks for watching. Till next time, adios. If you need help or want to chat with me or others who also enjoy projects like this, you can find us on Facebook and Discord. If you like what I'm doing and you want to support me, you can use my special product links in the video description, or head over to Patreon, or just like and share my videos. That's easy. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, this box will take you to a playlist of some of my favorites. In addition to videos like this, I also do live streams every Sunday. This box will take you to a recording of the latest live stream. That's all for now. Adios.